Welcome to an incomplete guide to world domination, a podcast by creators for creators, because together we can take over the world. I am your host, Brianna Toiber. Why don't y'all introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about your podcast?
Okay, so my name is Hannah, and I am the DM on the podcast Guildfellows, where we do a homebrew D&D 5e adventure. And yeah.
And my name is Rob. I am a player character in said D&D adventure podcast. I'm one of three, and the other two are not with us today, but they're fantastic as well. So
That'd be quite the editing feat. I don't know if I'm ready for that.
understandable, yeah. I'll speak for them, which they love when I do. So
So, how did you guys get started doing this? Or just this as in D&D?
Well, as anyone who has listened to the podcast will know, I am not super experienced in D&D myself. I had only played 2 or 3 times before actually starting the podcast, and both were one-shots. And the real story behind me wanting to start the podcast was I finished the Adventure Zone Balance, and I was like, "Wow, I want to do that. That was really fun." And the 4 of us all attended the same university, the University of Tulsa, and Rob and I were members of the TU Media Lab, which had just opened a podcast studio. So basically, I kind of told myself, like, I really want to do this, and the only thing that's stopping me is me. So I just I contacted everyone because I thought they would be a good fit, and we just got started.
I like the way you think. That's kind of how I did with this. Is like, I want to do this, except for it's more of I have a microphone and I have Audacity. I don't have a recording studio. I just record in my room.
Yeah, no, that's what I do now. I'm literally sitting in my bedroom next to a large curtain.
yeah, and I'm in a closet, so I definitely understand the feeling.
We've definitely upgraded.
Well, I downgraded. The podcast studio that she was referring to is actually a passion project that I and one of our, what would you call Steven? I mean, like
one of our adult helpers.
A slightly adultier adult.
the man that went to Tulsa.
Yeah. He had like a job and everything.
Like, he's like a college student plus. He's like if you downloaded an app that was college student and then bought the premium version, he would be that. And so like he mostly did all the
Love that description. I like this person. I don't even know him.
And he's a beautiful person that is a tech wizard, and so he helped us like get the equipment and like build a like soundproof studio out of an old ticket booth that wasn't used anymore for a theater on campus. And I started doing my podcasting stuff there, and that's a whole other story of my like other side gig podcasts and stuff.
Definitely going to have you back for that, for sure. You are now committed to this.
Yeah, well, that I need to do more with it is the thing. There's been a very large thumbtack put into that project because a lot of things, like basically the long and short of it is that it was a politics podcast that was premised around talking about political issues in a nonpartisan way, and then the world got incredibly partisan in like a night, and so that became a lot harder to do. And I've been kind of in the stasis of like, how do I talk about anything without taking a very controversial stance on it and like still feeling good about it? And so that is a thing for another state. But anyway, was like the first person to use that studio and then trained a bunch of people how to use it, and then
Yeah.
Han learned how to use it, and then we made this awesome podcast, which is way more fun to talk about than politics.
Yeah, that's gotta be rough. That's why I'm like, I stick to nerdy things that are not political, and I'm just not
Yeah,
gonna
no
get into
thanks.
politics because that's messy.
Yeah.
Well, at least not in a very public place. I will talk to friends about it, but that's because we don't bite each other's head off if we don't agree.
Well, I find politics really interesting, like, I study political science, but, I mean, just part of the problem is that it's a little bit like doing your day job at home, and just nobody wants to do the same thing over and over again, so, like, it was hard to keep the passion for it going, like, if I had, like, through like, 4 politics classes a week, and then I also, in my free time, I'm trying to write and, like, talk about politics for, like, a long form podcast, it just gets exhausting, and I feel my soul slowly leaking out of my eyeballs, and that's not a pleasant feeling, so,
It really isn't. I know that
no.
feeling.
Yeah, so
I work in retail. So, how long have you guys been doing the Guild Fellows?
So, our first episode, we actually started in, like, March? Sometime in the middle of March. I think I, like, had everyone meet each other, like, at the either the end of February or the beginning of March, and then I took our spring break, like, that whole week to write the first couple episodes, and then we started recording after we came back from that. Ever since then, we started doing weekly episodes, but just recently we've started moving to biweekly episodes. So, yeah, we have about 22, 21, 22 episodes out, and we've been doing it since March of this year.
Oh, so it's pretty new, but sounds like you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, we're like super surprised by how much like how popular we've gotten in the past couple months. Like we made an Instagram account and a Twitter account, and that's when we kind of like popped off. We really didn't think anyone was gonna start listening to us. We just kind of did it for fun. We didn't like think we were gonna get up to this scale, and yeah, now we have over 2,000 listens at this point, which is just kind of insane.
I can't even imagine that, but yeah, I just out of curiosity, I was like, how many downloads has my podcast gotten? One of my has gotten 7 in one day. That's the most in one day that I've gotten. It's more total.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'm like, oh hey.
you got to start somewhere.
my advice is leverage your friends and family because they will listen to it regardless if you ask them enough times, and then
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's absolutely true.
Oh no, absolutely. Like well, mom and I share an iTunes account, so of course she's subscribed because I'm subscribed, but I need to do it on my grandmother's. I'm like, I don't even care if you listen. You can just open it and fast forward it to the end. Just you're subscribing to this.
It's easier for us since we have there's 4 of us and there's only one of you. So it's there's an exponential amount of family and friends that we can bug to listen. So
Yeah, I need to start bugging my family too. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun doing this all by myself.
yeah.
But I'm also in the process of working on a role playing podcast with some friend of mine. I think we're gonna use Starfinder as the basis, just because we're a bunch of female space pirates.
Oh, that
But
sounds awesome.
yeah, I also have.
Pirates is a great role-playing opportunity.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how that's gonna work. But what have been some of the challenges for you guys trying to figure this out and get this going, both technically and DMing and all of that?
So basically, our first hurdle that we had to overcome was me graduating. I really didn't know if we were going to continue after I graduated, because again, we started in March and I graduated in May, and I didn't know if we were going to lose interest or we were going to try to keep going. And I didn't really know where I was headed after graduation at that point. Um, but we kept interest. We loved doing it. So I bought an external microphone so I could record remotely, and we've kept it going. But Yeah, recently we've had a little bit of trouble since now we're all kind of in different places. Like Rob currently is in Germany, which is why we're recording at kind of a weird time.
Works for me. My Sundays are chill, so
No, yeah, that's good. And I currently have just started a full time job out in Los Angeles, and I'm also
ooh.
taking part time classes on top of that. So we just kind of have started slowing down. That's why we started going to the biweekly episodes instead of
Mhm.
weekly, because I think we would all die if if we kept trying to do weekly episodes. But yeah,
I mean the bi-monthly?
or yeah, like every other week is our schedule. So
I do that all the time.
yeah,
I call it bi-weekly and then people are like, "You mean you do 2 weeks?" I'm like, "No, no, no, I do it every other week."
no, yeah. If we did, I think we would like spontaneously combust if we did it twice a week. I don't think we'd survive that.
Yeah,
No.
that's gonna be a hard pass for your boy in Germany right now.
Yeah, so
That gives me a headache to think about.
that's where we're at with everything right now, but we're handling it and it's going pretty well. I'm really happy with the last couple episodes we've released, and yeah, I'll let Rob talk now.
Yeah, I mean, so from like a content standpoint, the challenges have been interesting. I think none of us really expected this to become like a big thing, and so like like had very little like responsibility in terms of like how we like did our show basically in the first few episodes because like we just like had no listeners. And so now that we have like episodes with like several hundred plays, like our attitude towards like how to generate content on mic has changed dramatically. And so like we've had to like do a lot more behind the scenes work with like developing who our characters like actually are, like who are these people that we talk as for an hour each week, and like how do they interact with each other, and like thinking more critically about our choices and kind of getting into the role play has been like the biggest thing that we've had to work on. um and it's kind of
It's
interesting.
challenging, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, because you kind of like roll a character at the beginning and then have no idea what you just created, you know? And it's also interesting because I had known Han kind of through TUTV and kind of just like running in the same like circle of like people, but we hadn't spent like any like actual time like together
Yeah.
talking or like planning or like hanging out or anything like that. And same for the other members of the crew. Like I didn't know that like them at all. And so basically like what happened is that we became friends through D&D. So the chemistry between our characters and the chemistry between us as like people like developed like at the same time, like an hour a week basically, and then through GroupMe. And so like there's like a noticeable kind of trend in our episodes where we get like a lot more comfortable talking with each other like in character and like cracking jokes that like feel organic, that like are in role play, as opposed to like chatting outside of our characters and like making quips and then like diving back in. So it's just been like a different change in like style and how we do things.
Yeah,
So
it's actually one of the things I love about D&D is just sort of how you forge relationships with people even though you are acting as characters, you still like start to bond with people. And it's not always the same way as the way your character is bonding with their character, but you get to be friends with people and you get to really know them and you get comfortable letting your character be vulnerable. And I think in a way, it's like you being vulnerable too, because you put part of yourself into your character, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I have a coworker who hates gnomes, so she always puts that um, in her D&D characters, and her current character is not just does not like gnomes, is she is a druid who is, like, incredibly racist towards gnomes,
Oh my
oh wow.
gosh.
which is proved interesting now that we're being helped by a group of gnomes and trying to not piss off their god. She might need a new character soon.
Yeah, she might not like our podcast because 25% of our cast is a gnome. So
Yeah, it's last session was really fun. She was silenced most of the time, but she could still talk through this telepathy stone that our Warforged has the other one too. So He's been getting to listen to her rant about Kill All the Gnomes for a while. I just hope that doesn't wear on him in any way, because that will
Oh
go
my
poorly.
gosh.
So, what are some of the, like, interesting, unexpected surprises that have come out of this?
Well, most of all, probably the biggest surprise is, how popular we've gotten. We've already said that, talked about it a little bit, but again, we really started this podcast thinking that nobody was going to listen to it. We were just doing it for fun, and now we have a semi-large social media following. And we're not even that popular. Like, there are definitely more podcasts out there that are way bigger than ours, but like for us, it's huge because we didn't think that our episodes were going to be listened to over 2,000 times, which is wild. And just kind of learning and growing with that as it's been going along, and kind of realizing that this is something that I really love doing. And since it's my first time being exposed to it, kind of, it's become a really big passion of mine. And yeah, I guess that was kind of a surprise. But yeah, Rob?
Kind of addicting, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it really is. It's like I'll be working on it like before class, after I've gotten off work, I'll be like writing up the next episode, and like, it's addicting. It's really fun.
Yeah, and it's like a cult following too, which is weird, but it's like minus the cult fanaticism, like, because by looking at our numbers, we know that there is like somewhere between, what would you say, like 60 to 70 people that listen to like every single episode and like listen right when it comes out, and then other people
Yeah.
kind of filter in and out. But it's weird because we don't necessarily see that engagement like on Twitter and Instagram. And so, but like we see like based on like the metrics of our episodes, like there's people that like have to be like really into our show.
Yeah, there's like ghost listeners that we really want to meet and talk to, but we just don't see that same engagement on our social medias. And I shout out during our mid-roll episode, or our mid-roll segments every episode, like, come talk to us on Twitter, come talk to us on Instagram, we want to talk to you. um and I've just recently discovered that our podcast has been distributed to like really small websites that I've never heard of and that aren't listed on Anchor. And we get listens on those websites, and we get a large amount of our plays through those small websites that I've never heard of. And so that's just really wild. It's like you're just looking through a random Google search or whatever, and you're like, oh, we've gotten a couple likes on our episode on this random website that I've never heard of. So that's also kind of wild.
I actually didn't know that. That's kind of crazy. I wonder if those are like D&D specific forums or something like that, but that's kind of nuts. I didn't actually had no idea that was happening.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I forgot that Anchor does that. There's actually I looked at publishing through Anchor, but I decided to go with Libsyn instead because, like, yes, it does cost money, but you get to pick where your stuff goes.
Oh yeah?
Because I just was not thrilled about the thought of someone else deciding where they were going to put my stuff, and like they
Right.
could like take it down, put it back up, and I'm like, no, I want to know where my stuff is going, and I don't want you touching it.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I totally get that.
Yeah.
But then again, like I started this as it was something that like I wanted and was passionate about, but it's also like I wanted to build it into something.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes
So I
total sense.
still get excited when I'm like, "Ooh, I got 8 downloads in a day."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's yeah, that like that feeling whenever you see your numbers going up it's like it's unlike anything else. It's really
I
cool.
had that feeling when we released a one-off that we did as like a drunk cast that was called Guildfellows Old Gods, and it was like a 2-hour episode that we put out in the middle of nowhere, and we had gotten like a couple consistent plays, but I think now that episode is our second or third highest behind our like first
Yeah,
episode.
it's been yeah, it's our second most popular episode um out of all of them with almost 150 plays. Um and that was an episode that Rob DM'd, and that was one where I was a player. And yeah, it's not a 2-hour episode, it's a 3.5-hour
Oh shit.
episode.
Yeah, I forgot
And
about that.
yeah, we
Yeah.
this was like after graduation, and I wanted to like go back to Tulsa to record with everyone else like one last time before I moved, and we just got drunk and we had fun, and it was a great time. And now for some reason it's one of our more popular episodes.
I love that. I love that so much.
At first I didn't understand really why, but it was like I think in hindsight it was this perfect storm of like it is like kind of the perfect rainy night podcast where like if you truly have nothing to do for 3.5 hours, like it is like first of all, knowing that it was gonna be a drunk cast, and I don't know why I did this, but knowing that they were gonna be sloppy and drunk, I decided, you know what, I'll write 20 pages worth of scenarios and world building for this one-off that'll have no consequence to the future of our podcast. And so I guess the combination of it being so long and then like meticulously written and then all of that writing falling apart kind of in this whirlwind of like drunkenness, I guess just produced this right combo of like humor and like engagement that can keep people for 3.5 hours. That's the crazy thing too. There's so many people that listened to like all 3.5 hours. There must be because like I think there's a certain percentage you have to listen through to like get the view to count. Like you can't just listen for a minute and then log off and it'll count. So like so many people listen to the whole 3.5 hours of our drunk rambling, and I can't believe
Yeah,
it.
it's crazy.
I would listen to 3.5 hours of drunk D&D rambling. That's, like, it's the best.
Oh yeah. Yeah, go listen to
Well, go
it.
listen to it. What are you doing?
I will.
You can tell it apart pretty easily. There's no episode number next to it, and it also has different cover art. I inverted our logo, the colors to make it stand out.
Nice. So, did you do all the graphic design for it?
Yeah, so I'm starting to kind of not like our logo because of how simple it is. I literally just kind of threw it together in Canva one day. Because
Same. I love Canva. All of my art for all of my podcasts is done through Canva, and it's great.
yeah, so yeah, I just kind of threw it together in Canva, and I really liked it at first, but now seeing like a bunch of other people's like really intricate like logos and like heartfelt art that they're putting into their brands. I think we might change it up in the sometime in the future. Probably keep like the same like swords crossing and the big bold font, but I might hire an artist to make a new one for me.
I know a few.
Awesome, send me their links.
I will. Yeah, like one of the. I have a person I went to college with, and she's a person I would go to for graphics work that I can't do in Canva. And I have another friend I went to college with who does music, and he's the guy I get to do the music for my podcast because he's really
Oh
stinking
no,
good
yeah.
at it. Like he actually just dropped a
Yeah.
music video that he and another friend worked on, where he did the music and the other friend did the video, and I'm mildly obsessed with how good it is.
Yeah, that's really cool. Actually, Amelia, one of our other players, she does a little bit of our graphic design. She designed the Guild of the Three Heroines logo, which is the guild in Guildfellows, the Guild of the Three Heroines. And those logos both slap. We sell merch with both of them on it. It's like a diamond shape. And she has like an art degree or something. So she does some of our artistic stuff.
It's always good to have artsy friends.
No, yeah, definitely. She's been a huge asset to us.
So, what do your friends and family think about this? Like, what did they think in the beginning? What do they think now?
At the beginning, it was mostly just a hobby, and it still pretty much is a hobby for us. And so, of course, I don't think any parents would be, upset over a fun hobby unless it was like impeding on your like grades or like work or anything like that. But both of my parents have bought shirts from our merch store. and they always ask me about it whenever I talk to them on the phone. So yeah, they're really supportive of it. I don't know how much they've actually listened to because I don't think they would be into what we're doing, but yeah, they're supportive.
My parents might listen to this one. I doubt they'll listen to Tales of Adventure, although they are starting to come to terms with the fact that I like D&D and that's okay. In 3 different campaigns. So it's
Yeah, my family is more or less like my dad keeps saying he'll to it, but I don't think he's gonna get around to it. But they're very supportive. They think it's cool. I don't think they fully get it. I mean, my dad kind of gets it because he listens to like a lot of podcasts, but I don't think he is super into D&D. And then like my friends are supportive, but also I don't think listen a whole bunch. I don't know. I think it's always awkward to like listen and review someone that you know and loves work. Like because you don't like you're kind of like in a weird place where like I would want my friends to give me criticism, but would also feel very bad if like honestly if they like were like, oh, like your podcast's kind of not good. I know they wouldn't say it, but like I don't think they want to be put in that situation. So I think they just politely say they'll listen to it and then save us the conversation about it, I think. But whenever I tell them about like our metrics and stuff like that, they're like they think it's really cool, but they'll probably bandwagon on at some point when we hit like a crazy number of listens or something like that. Once I'm bankrolling their education with all this ad money that we're getting at a cent at a time, they'll come around.
and when people start mentioning Guildfellows in the same breath as, like, Critical Role,
Shh, we're gonna wish it into existence.
Oh my gosh, that'll never happen, but you know, we can dream. But no, but to piggyback off of what Rob was talking about, my friends actually, a lot of my friends from high school have been listening to it, and I feel super lucky because they're loving it, and they're telling me that they're really liking it. A few of my friends have bought shirts from us, and one of my friends who I was talking to, who listens every week and is a huge fan, he was telling me a couple weeks ago about how he was having a rough summer, and he, liked having our podcast as something he could look forward to every week to have a laugh and have like an hour of fun. So that was really cool to hear about from him.
I can imagine. So, at what point did you guys start making merch?
Oh man, when did we first? A couple months ago, at least.
Yeah, pretty early on in the
Yeah,
process.
probably.
It was pretty easy to do, so we just kinda opened a merch store, and we're like, "Alright, we'll see where this
Yeah, it
goes."
was like the website that we use is called Teespring, and you can literally just do everything for free, and it's really awesome. And we probably released merch earlier than we should have, but we've sold some stuff.
It can't hurt, can it?
Gotta dream big.
No, I guess it can't, but yeah, it's super easy. I would highly recommend it. You can their tools are really easy to make your own stuff that you want to sell, and yeah, it's free, and it's literally just like free profit basically.
I'll have to keep that in mind. What are some other useful tools you've come across in all of this?
The word processor.
The word processor.
Being able to write shit down has been really helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't handle a lot of administrative stuff, so I'm just trying to chime in every once in a while.
No, so I really love Anchor. We currently have a sponsorship ad with them, and it sounds fake, but I really love Anchor. It's easy to use, and it's free, and it literally just does all the work for me. So it like keeps track of all of your plays and like where everyone is listening and how they're listening, and it literally just makes my life so much easier. So I love Anchor. I would highly recommend it. Audacity is good for what I need it for, but it's not the best for what I need it for.
I use Audacity as well, and do you ever kind of start feeling like you're getting sort of like having double vision, and it's like your brain disconnects, you don't know what you're looking at when you're trying to edit stuff?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Audacity is kinda strange. Audacity is also very fickle, I've found. like sometimes it just decides that it does not want to with you and you're just gonna have to try again later or deal with it. Don't know
Yeah,
why it does that,
like today.
but yeah,
Like, I was
exactly.
trying to record my local audio, but it decided that it wasn't gonna record my microphone for some reason. So, all hail the Audacity gods, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes it'll just erase my audio. So I've started like I back up everything. I export it to an MP3 like immediately.
That's
It's like I
probably
don't trust
smart.
you.
Yeah, but if you have a little bit of a budget, I recommend using Adobe Audition because it's much easier to use and add in effects and like it's a little bit more complicated to like look at. I guess like it's not as intuitive to see what you have to do, but like I spent maybe 20 minutes at YouTube tutorials and I figured it out very quickly. And it's just way easier for editing and I think it produces a better quality content. But it is expensive. So either
Yeah,
way.
fuck Adobe.
Yeah, they don't make it.
I've I've heard from some because I have a lot of I'm part of a couple of discords with people who do audio dramas and audio fiction. So
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of them recommend Reaper because you can get a free trial and the trial never technically ends. It just
Oh,
keeps asking you to buy it.
okay, that's cool. We'll check it out.
Just a nice little workaround, and I still haven't sat down to figure out how to use it yet, just because just recently got a second job managing 2 podcasts and working on my writing samples and stuff. So I'm like, "What is sleep?
Right.
I'll be fine."
I get it. I get it.
We've talked a lot about like the administrative stuff with like how we made our podcast. Do you have any interest in like learning about like our content creation and like how we like go about doing that?
I'm always curious personally, and also I part of why I'm making like this podcast is like I want to. It's for people who want to create stuff so they can listen to other people who have created stuff or done stuff that they're passionate about and see how to do it.
Cool.
And also realize you're not alone in wanting to do this, and you can actually be successful doing this. It's not easy, but it's possible.
It's definitely possible. Han, do you want to talk about like what like your basic like I don't want saying philosophy behind the podcast is maybe a little bit strong, but like what your basic like idea was for like how you wanted to structure the adventure?
Yeah, so I again was super new to D&D. I still am super new to D&D whenever I started the podcast, but I have recently come to realize that I'm not great at ad-libbing. So I try to write down everything that I can. I try to guess every situation that I can so I can have it prepared for like notes and stuff. And for people who are interested in seeing that, our Patreon now has if you do the $5 tier, I am releasing my DM notes for every month for every episode. So if you want to see those, that's where they are. But yeah, so I just try to like I'm kind of figuring out how to do this as it goes along, and I think I'm getting better at it, but I try to write down everything I can, and I am trying to teach myself how to be a little more go with the flow. But I knew starting the podcast, I really wanted this to be like story based because, again, that's how the Adventure Zone was, and I really adored everything about that podcast. So,
I love
um,
that podcast. I'm listening to it currently, and I think I'm about halfway through the Pedal to the Metal arc.
oh my gosh, you like it's so good. It ramps up like after I think after Pedals to the Metal is when it gets really intense and you're gonna spend all of your time listening to it. Because that's what I did.
Love binge listening to things.
Yeah. So I knew going starting out that I really wanted it to be a story based thing. And I have been as I've been planning out the episodes and planning out each session, I've kind of kept that in mind that it's kind of like half playing the game and then also half telling a story. So that is yeah, that's kind of my, I guess, philosophy when going about writing our episodes. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, Rob, but yeah.
I hardly ever know what I'm talking about, but that was a good answer.
As long as it sounds like you know what you're talking about, it's fine. That's what I've learned.
Okay, I hope I sound like that.
I guess like for me, I can't speak for Amelia or Brennan, who are the other two members, but when I first created my character Juilliard, who, if you haven't listened to the podcast, is a dragonborn monk. Um, I Well, so we had this meeting, and it was before we recorded our first podcast, and basically we were supposed to come in with character ideas, and it worked out really well that our characters had backstories and traits that, like, worked well together, but in hindsight, I don't think like, we should have workshopped, like, our characters and our stories a little bit better so that, like, we coulda had a more coherent theme, but our theme is coherent, just purely by accident, um, and which is kind of the best. I wouldn't change it at all. But when I
Yeah.
first made my character, I, like, tried to find, an archetype, I guess, like, an anti-archetype, like, a character that people don't normally play. So, like, the obvious is, like, you're a, elf ranger, or you're a human, barbarian, or you're an orc barbarian, like a human swordsman or something like that. Things that are like or a dwarf that has a big axe, like, things that most people associate with fiction, and so I was like, no one ever thinks about dragons being like, zen and monk-like. They're mostly just kind of like these brutes that have like really high strength and dex. And so I
Mhm.
was like, I'm gonna do that. And then about the time we hit level 3, I think, we had to choose like our subdivisions within our classes. So like for people that don't know D&D really well, like once you hit a certain level, your class becomes like a little bit more specialized. And so for monks, you basically have to choose like a monastic order. And I don't want to necessarily spoil anything, but I chose a monastic order that was like I thought was really cool, and it is very cool, but it made me have to change the way I played my character and like had to deal with the implications of like what that meant for him as a person. And so luckily my backstory allowed a lot of like facilitation of that creativity, but it was definitely kind of like an ad hoc, like, oh, Juilliard is now going to be this character and I need to make that happen. And so then it became a lot more work to try to like figure out who he was as a person, which is also very introspective to contemplate who your fictional self is. So,
Yeah, and I've personally found sometimes is you don't know how your character's going to react to a situation until they're in that situation. Like I
yeah,
find that a
Yeah.
lot with one of my
absolutely.
characters. I have one that's she is a drow paladin who spent the first 200 years of her life serving a tyrant king, hunting down and executing dissidents until one day someone showed her
Oh,
that there
wow.
was
Wow.
more to life than that. And there was an attack on the compound she was at, and the rebellion apparently like someone told them to like get her out of there, and like so that she wakes up in a temple getting healing, and she just basically gives them a different name when they ask her who she is,
Hmm.
and disappears and lets everyone think she's dead, and joins a paladin order, and gets a very large bounty on her head somehow.
Hmm.
Wow, that's very
I like it.
intense.
I like well,
Yeah.
like thought out, reasoned backstories. One of our co-party members, Amelia, is great at that sort of thing, where she will just like go on and on about random things that her character experienced and stuff like that. And it's kind of ingenious because early on in the podcast, she established this precedent that she would write home to her family, and so she would go on these beautiful, like adorable monologues about the things that she's experiencing, and it like really brings her character to life. And
It really
but
does.
it's all like internally consistent, which is kind of the amazing skill. It's kind of she's kind of a savant at like totally like melding into her character, which is named Kitsa, and
The
she just
name's
goes.
adorable.
That's just who
Yeah,
she is as a
she's
person.
yeah, she's so adorable.
All of our characters fit us, which
Yeah.
is fun.
It's fun adding detail like that. Like with Arome, my drow paladin, she's very haunted by what she does. So whenever she's meditating at night, like she twitches a lot because she's having nightmares. And if something startles her, she immediately goes into attack
Huh.
mode. But also when people immediately don't trust her because everyone knows Joe with the military, she doesn't protest it.
Huh.
Yeah, wow.
She also really doesn't like
I
fire.
dig that.
No,
Yeah.
like yeah, cool little details like that really make the story. They're like they're little, but they're important.
Yeah, they're super important. I'm gonna just throw up right now that this is gonna be some spoiler warning stuff because I'm about to some like stuff that happens in our ep. So if you don't want to be spoiled, go listen to our full library of
Go listen.
episodes right now. Do it. I'm watching you. I'm looking at your iTunes accounts. Just go do it. I'm gonna be upset if you don't.
We'll know.
We
We'll
always
know.
know.
Well, go ahead and spoil it. I'll still listen to it. Just go ahead and spoil it.
Yeah, that was a professional risk you took on. Yeah, so like we just recently are currently recording episodes that are basically memory episodes of our core trio of adventurers. Be
Ooh.
Yeah, which is a super cool idea that I never like that hand came up with, I think, to like facilitate our backstories in a way that didn't detract from like, the what was going on in the moment. So, it's like it's always annoying when like anime characters will stop mid-fight and give you their whole backstory. It's like, before I fight this
Ugh,
bad guy, I need to tell you about how I was abandoned and how my life sucked. And this is why I'm evil now. And then like you're
I
just like,
hate that
okay.
trope. I hate it.
Yeah, right, and so we wanted to find, like, a natural way to, like, incorporate that important information in a way that is it's, like, its own compelling narrative, and so one of the fun things for Juilliard was, like, turning this, like, um so, like, the original basis for the character was that he was a monk who was a former circus or not a monk, he was a dragonborn who's also a monk, but I need to get the order of operations right here. So, he was a dragonborn that was a circus performer, a traveling troupe. And when he was about 18, the traveling like caravan was attacked by bandits and like everybody he knew was like slaughtered. And so he joined a monastery and became a monk essentially and then got like embroiled in the guild stuff. That's like a quick synopsis. If you want to hear the full story, you should go listen to it. But yeah, it was like a weird transition like because I started it with the premise that this is a goofy like charismatic performing type character because of his history, and then once I had to reconcile with like how his history actually plays out, he's become a lot more like somber and a bit more complex, and so like it kind of forced me and I think forcing the others whose stories I've intentionally not exposed myself to yet because I don't want to be spoiled for them.
I want it to be a
But we all like have
surprise.
to. Exactly, and I kinda wanna, like, hear the story from their characters' lips, I guess, like, because I don't wanna just read it in a group meeting and be like, "Oh, that's cool." I wanna, like, legitimately learn Kitsa and Dartle, the podcast, and, like, hear how they, like, have experienced life before Juilliard met them, so
I love that concept. I love it.
I came up with the idea of the memory episodes mainly because Rob is in Germany right now, so we could do something where we recorded one on one instead of all four of us together because that was going to be impossible. But I think this
Yay,
is
time zones.
yeah I yeah definitely. I think this is I think it ended up being in a natural spot in the order of events in the story, which I really like. And our first one has was released on Wednesday, and I think it turned out super well. And Amelia and I are going to be recording the next one today, so hopefully that will come out. I mean, it will come out uh, a week and a half from now. And Rob, I think you're gonna like it. I have some good stuff cooked up. I'm excited for
I'm so excited. I'm so
it.
excited.
I'm like, I haven't even
But
listened yet. I'm like, I'm looking forward to this.
yeah.
That's what I'm here for. I'm here for the story, the characters, all the shenanigans. Like, it's the reason I created a podcast where I interview people's characters is because I want all of it.
There are definitely some shenanigans. Our podcast is a good mix of, like, legit, like, storytelling with, like, a wide, complex range of, like, chins and character growth with just us doing stupid things and telling jokes. I would say the beginning of our podcast is a third wall breaking where, like which kinda makes sense because we had to spend some time kind of getting, like, to know each other, and we didn't really well thought out ideas of, like, what this all was, like, meant to be. And so, like, you get a lot more of our, like, personalities as people in the first, like, 6 episodes, and then once we start getting into, like, some more serious things, and like coming up against some more like realistic challenges, not realistic, but just like dire circumstances, like more,
More intense.
yeah, more like story driven.
Yeah, and as our content quality increases, so does our audio quality. Our first, probably 4 or 5 episodes are really quiet, and that was just me not knowing how to edit audio, but for those of you who are going to truck your way through it, it gets better, I promise.
Yeah, I guess it's just one of those turn it up and be prepared to turn it down after a certain point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be your kind of own audio mixer with the early one.
Audio editing's hard to get used to, especially if you're editing for multiple channels. Like, I've only done the dual channel so far, so this will be my first practice at more.
Oh, yeah. Glad we're giving you a challenge.
Yeah, I'm like, it'll be a nice preparation for when I start my own thing with my friends. You ever have that thing happen where you have so many creative projects that you want to do, so you just overload yourself and you just sit there like, I have 2 interview
Yep.
podcasts and 2 role play podcasts that I have to edit on top of my day job, and just people give me more money so I can just do this all the
Yeah, that's
time.
me right now. That's absolutely
Yeah,
me right now.
I totally understand that feeling.
So, what is your day job? I'm curious.
So my day job is I'm a video editor for a beauty content startup website. Um,
Oh, that
so
sounds kind
yeah,
of fun.
yeah, it's cool. It's an all female workspace, which is really nice, and yeah, it's been a cool experience working for a startup.
I've worked for a couple startups in my time. It's just great.
And then I don't have a day job. My day job right now is trying to survive, in a foreign land.
Yeah, it's traveling around Germany.
I actually had a strange interaction today. This is totally off topic, but it's like whenever I don't understand like what someone's like trying to explain to me in German, like they'll oftentimes switch to English just because like most of them know a good enough like amount of English where they can just communicate it both ways. Um, and so
Mhm.
I bought something today, and the guy asked me like if I had a 2 euro coin, except he didn't say the word for coin. He just said like, "Do you have two small dollars?" Basically, like in German. And I was just so confused. And like like said it in English, like, "Do you have like a 2 euro coin?" And then in German, I asked him what the word for that was for in German. And then in English, he said, "I can't explain it," which is so confusing because I was just asking him what the word that he was like used before was.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my day job is trying to navigate the waters of like essentially being a 6-year-old in Germany or like with the language comprehension of a 6-year-old trying to understand what's going on around me. So it's fun. It's a good time.
That sounds very fun.
It's stressful too. You lose a lot of your like personal inhibitions and like mores at looking silly when like it's just unavoidable. Like one time a guy offered me a fork when I was eating takeout and I for fork, and so he literally just held up a fork and said the word gobble, like which is the word for fork, at me, and then shook it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I need one of those." Yeah, but I won't forget that word ever again. But it's just how
Oh
you
my
learn.
gosh.
Dang, now I kind of want like a little audio drama or like something serious following someone around to like a country where they don't speak most of the language and just have it just be entirely interactions like that.
Yeah, I mean Germany is a much kinder country in that aspect. 'Cause, like most people speak a little bit of English, and I found that if you try to speak their language and like you explain that you're like trying to learn, that they're much more patient with you, more often than not. And so like you do have wholesome reactions. Like the time that I forgot what the word for explained afterwards, I was a student, and it was like I was getting doner, which is like a Middle Eastern like German fusion thing. It's like lamb meat and like a flatbread with like a bunch of like vegetables and super delicious. Um, but it's like a predominantly like Turkish thing, and so like after I explained that, these like two like very burly looking Turkish men just like dissolved into like adoration and praise, like, "Oh my god, it's so cool that you're learning. Like, you just got to speak more. You totally got this." And I was like, "This is weirdly wholesome. I'm just trying to eat fast food, but I really appreciate this." Yeah. So
That's adorable.
yeah, it was very sweet. I also play basketball with a lot of Germans, and the basketball court is, like, right outside this really pretty church, and so it's just, like, a beautiful thing. But the Germans there, like, teach us, like, curse words in German and then, like, become friends with them, and then we play basketball, and it's cool. It's a good time.
That does sound like a good time.
Mm.
Probably a better time than visiting certain parts of America.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun traveling around America too. Uh, I don't know, it's just different. It's like there's nothing that can replace, like, being in a, like, foreign environment, and, like, German like, especially West Germany is not that foreign, like, it's the same basic idea as America, it's just, like I wouldn't say it's better, it's just, like, better executed. Like, the Germans have their shit locked down. Like, the trains are never late, the streets are very clean, everybody here recycles. Everybody here rides bikes. It's just, like, slightly different. But, yeah, it's, like, it won't replace America. America is always special in terms of, like, how it feels like home.
I mean, I feel like moving to Los Angeles has been like moving to a foreign country, being from the Midwest.
Oh, I
No,
can
I'm kidding.
imagine.
It's terrible.
Do you not like it?
Don't move here. It's just like everything's expensive and people are rude and it's
Well,
very different from the Midwest.
yeah, I've heard that people in California are not the nicest.
They really aren't. Like I've been run into multiple times by adults and children and they'll just keep walking. They won't say, "Oh, sorry," or "I didn't see you," or whatever. They'll slam right into you and then keep walking. That's happened to me more than once.
It's
Yeah, I
just
find
rude.
California to be a little bit overrated. I mean, I like it because they believe in good things. I also have a personal beef with San Francisco because their city makes no sense.
I haven't been there, so I wouldn't know.
It is the weirdest. Everything's built on a hill, everything's uphill, which doesn't make sense because there's
California
an
is
uphill, there must
only
be a
hills.
downhill. But no, it is just all hills, and you can't walk anywhere because the hills, and the public transportation only goes in 2 directions and, like, through, like, the direct middle of the city and the outside of the city, and so taking a train anywhere, it doesn't work. You have to take an Uber, and it's just weird. I don't know, and it's really expensive, and it smells like
I
fish.
didn't know you felt so strongly about San Francisco.
I didn't either until I visited.
I was not expecting that rant, but I think I'm gonna leave it in there just because it's
Okay,
entertaining.
fair enough. So, if you have any more questions about the
Yeah.
podcast, 'cause I can talk about cities that I don't like. Boston, never been there, but don't like Boston. Your basketball team's trash.
Boston's boring.
Yeah. Oh no, that's all I gotta say
We're way
about
off
Boston.
topic.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. I get I I get used to it. That's what editing is for.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Alright, so I guess, do you have any advice for someone looking to start a podcast like yours or something you wish someone had told you in the beginning?
Um, my advice would definitely just be just do it. Um, I've I've praised Anchor already too much in this episode or in this interview, but they really do make it like you can record a podcast episode straight from your phone, and it's a free app. And like you really like if you want to make a podcast, if you want to make a D&D podcast, you're the only one holding yourself back. Like you can do it. Yeah, it's hard at first to kind of get used to like a schedule, but once you get it down, it's really rewarding.
Eh, getting that schedule's fun.
Yeah.
My advice for starting a podcast is so if you're doing it with other people, do it with people that you like.
Yes. Yes.
That's, like, the biggest thing. Make sure that your coworkers are people that you can actually work well with and that you jive with. They don't necessarily need to be your best friends, but and actually, maybe they shouldn't be your best friends. Like, I have, like, a deep and unique relationship with all 3 of my co-casters that is, like, entirely unique because we do the podcast, and we're friends outside of it because of that. But the dynamic would not nearly have been as authentic had it been people that I already spent huge amounts of time with outside of it.
Yeah, we
Um,
kind of took a risk with that because um Rob, you and Brennan kind of knew each other a little bit from like classes, and then like Brennan and Amelia kind of knew each other from like being on housing staff. But you had never met Amelia. Amelia had never met you. And I knew all three of you just kind of tangentially, and it ended up being a really great cast. So we got lucky.
Well, and I think you also got a good pick of people. I mean, you knew all of us well.
Yeah.
This will probably be a good recipe, which is helpful. And then another piece of advice is whatever you're podcasting about, don't have it be something that you do all the time, I guess. Like, have it be a hobby that becomes a job and don't turn your job into a hobby. Like, I mentioned that, like, when I was talking about my politics podcast earlier, but you should do something that, like, you feel like you would want to do anyway once you get done with, like, whatever it is your day job. So, like, a lot of, like, video game streamers, like, don't do anything related to video games, and that's because, like, video gaming is, like, a hobby, and that has become, like, a job for them, but they do it because, like, at the fundamental level, they like to play games as, like, a way to relax and, like, peace, and the same thing is true with, like, really any sort of, like, personality-driven, like, audio or video content. You just have to be passionate about it, and you can't let it become something that you dread doing.
Oh,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, I agree with all of that. Real quick, where can people find you online?
Okay, so you can find Guildfellows at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the username Guildfellows, 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 one word. And then our actual podcast site is anchor.fm/Guildfellows, or you can just go to guildfellows.com and it will take you right there. And I guess for my personal stuff, my Twitter handle is at handband28, and my Instagram is at handband32.
I do different numbers.
Yeah, I took the first number that was available after handband, and for Twitter it was 28, and for Instagram it was 32.
Okay, then.
My Instagram is not actually Robbie Steer, all lowercase and with underscores between each. And right now I don't post anything Guildfellows related unless I like specifically try to shout it out. But you can see cool pictures from Germany there, and that's about it. So, no, if you're interested, give it a like. But it's up to you. Don't stalk me or anything. I mean, don't. I know there's those like
Oh.
60 to 70 people out there that
You
really
can
want to
stalk me, I
know
don't
what's
care.
going on in our steer's life, and they'll get all their fill on my Instagram, I guess. So.
Yeah, tweet me, stalk me, I don't care. Do it.
An Incomplete Guide to World Domination is written, directed, and produced by Brianna Toiber as part of Pseudonym Social, a creative podcast network. Music is by Patrick Chester of Chester Studios. You can find out more of his work at chesterstudios.com. For more information on the other shows produced by Pseudonym Social, please check out our website at pseudonymsocial.wordpress.com. If you would like to help support our show, you can find us at patreon.com/an incomplete guide to world domination.